And we're joined now by Barry Avrich and Mark Selby. Welcome to the CJN. Nice to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Congratulations. We've covered, of course, the whole story. But before we get into how has it been for you, I want to talk about the date of the opening because October 3rd is also the Taylor Swift opening for her movie.
Both films are going to attract a very similar audience, we feel. And so we hope people make a double feature out of it.
I wasn't going to go there because everyone ships, Barbie, Oppenheimer, whatever, but I wasn't going to do that. It doesn't feel right, but I did want to talk to you about the opening weekend. What was the reason you picked October 3rd, or how did that work out?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is that, we were coming out of such an extraordinary debate about the film in the film festival, out of the film festival, back in, tremendous reaction to the film. And so we wanted to certainly take advantage of the momentum. There isn't anywhere where Mark and I are going today where people aren't talking about the film. So that's been amazing. And so we wanted to, capture that heat. And then, certainly the proximity to October 7th. And if we went after, there's never the right time. All kinds of other films are opening at the same time. The fall is a very busy qualifying time for awards and films opening and generally. So we just basically said, you can come up with a million reasons of when to open, when not to open. And we just said, fine, let's do it. It's a moment. Everybody's talking about it. Let's rock and roll.
Because I worry about the protesters. You went through it in September 10th. Mark, I remember you said at the opening screening of TIFF, the first public screening, thank you all for taking the risk to be here with us today. You said that to the audience, and there were protesters outside, and it was really unpleasant. Are you at all worried about these films in sort of protected areas getting interrupted, boycotted, even worse? And what do you know about that?
Boycotted. Look, the word boycott. If you don't want to see the film, don't see the film. Anybody who's protested the film to date hasn't seen it. So, their opinion about the film is irrelevant to us. Cineplex and wherever this film will be seen is providing security. So there's no reason why people should feel uncomfortable. The noise on the opening on September 10th, where the film festival and others felt, oh my God, it's going to be safe. There ended up being, and it was really mischaracterized by so much of the media. There ended up being under 30 protesters there. And they were noisy. They were not violent. The police in Toronto did an extraordinary job in making everybody that walked into Roy Thompson Hall feel safe. There were extra safety measures. That's the world you live in. You make reference to Taylor Swift. If you go to a Taylor Swift concert or a Lady Gaga concert, you're going through the same juggernaut to get in. It won't be the same at a Cineplex theater in Canada or wherever you're going to see the film. But, that's the world we're living in. And I think people are used to it. It's not pleasant. However, we feel that hopefully our community and other communities send a message by supporting this film, being defiant, and seeing that this film is not political. It's emotional. It's a family. It's a story.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Back to community. You mentioned community. Many times you both have said that the community had your back and I'm talking about the Jewish community, but also not just Jewish people, for getting this film back and then supporting it. How much of a role are you aware of that the sort of public voting helped push you over towards winning the documentary People's Choice?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the People's Choice Award, the Toronto Film Festival is a large, very, very well-oiled machine. The voting is tied to IP addresses, and they track everything. So yes, Mark and I received hundreds and hundreds of emails from people that said, I voted, who might not necessarily have seen the film. And the film festival, again, goes through every vote. You cannot rig the system.
All the tickets are connected through Ticketmaster, so they know which email addresses were used to purchase tickets or who received tickets. And if a film gets 10,000 votes, I'm making it up, and our capacity at Roy Thompson Hall was 1,800 people. Well, they know there's clearly a campaign going on. So TIFF works based on percentages. This way, films that are playing at a smaller venue have as much of a chance of winning the People's Choice as a film that plays a larger venue like ours did. Thank goodness. But it does level the playing field significantly the way that they do it, and they also, as we say, can eliminate votes that are coming from people. Clearly.
I didn't know that, so that's interesting and helpful to understand. Because
And I think, Ellen, however, we were, humbled by the reaction by people wanting to vote, wanting to send that message. And again, certainly during that period of the film festival being withdrawn from the festival, the reaction from the community, and that's where we did say thank you for having our back. When Mark and I walked down to the stage at Roy Thompson Hall and 1,800 people stood up, I get emotional thinking about it. It left me speechless, and that's when I said I'll never forget these people, you people, the people in the dark, to quote Norma Desmond, who literally supported this film and said to the film festival, we will not be erased.
About community support, I also recently saw, and maybe you have too, another campaign on social media in Jewish circles to buy up as many tickets and sell out so that it could be longer in the cinemas before, I guess it's going to streaming. I'm not sure. How much time are you granted by Cineplex to keep it in the theaters, and then can this work?
Well, for now, it's a week. I think if the film is successful, it could be extended longer. It's wonderful if people want to buy out the theaters, but it would be even more wonderful if those tickets go to friends, allies, people outside the Jewish community as well, so that we're amplifying this story to people more than just the Jews who are already very supportive, and which we're grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, it's called show business for a reason. So the business of this weekend, and I'm hoping that our great friends at Cineplex and Landmark in Canada recognize that it's a weekend. There's a lot going on, and that if there's every theater will be assessed, and the box office will be assessed, and so we hope that it can have a life. There's a film that friends of ours are working on in New York City that's played for Jewish theme, that's played for 16 weeks. We're hoping that Cineplex and Landmark are as charitable and say, you know what, let this film build an audience.
My film go, yeah.
Let my film go. It's a tough business.
It's only till the 9th I saw when I tried to buy tickets so far. But, well, like you said, it depends, right?
We'll see.
Is it going to stream? I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say we're grateful that we're opening up on over 75 screens across North America. So throughout Canada, throughout the United States. We do have a website set up, theroadbetweenus.com. People can go to the website, check where it's playing in their local communities, and we have links to take them to the ticket page right on our site. So
we're supposed to be 125. What happened? There's only 75 now?
No, what happens with the film is we're currently at 77 screens, and then they just keep adding. By tomorrow, it could be 125 by next week. That's our plan.
I'm wondering, after going through this experience, how would you describe your relationship now with TIFF going forward? Is it all kumbaya, the way it sort of sounded on the stage when you thanked Cameron Bailey? Where are you at with this?
Well, look, the Toronto Film Festival, I've had a very, very long relationship with the festival, and Dusty Cole, my mentor, who was a co-founder of the film festival, and he's been gone for 18 years. So I feel very, very connected to the festival, which made them withdrawing it a tough road and a tough wound for me to get over. As a filmmaker, both Mark and I are used to submitting films to festivals and not getting in. I never took it for granted that we would get into the Toronto Film Festival. I think what was tough here was that we got in, and when we weren't in. As far as the relationship going forward, the Toronto Film Festival remains a very, very important film festival to filmmakers. Many people said, Ellen, to us that, after they had come back and said, we want to put the film in, many said to us, don't go back. Rent your own theaters. Go back. That wasn't a victory to rent my own theaters. If they weren't going to take it, then yes, I always said to Noam Tibon, don't cancel your ticket. You're coming. We'll rent the theater if we have to. But yeah, I could have done it anywhere, but certainly, pushing the film festival to put it back in was important. My relationship going forward with them, I think there's work to be done in terms of the film festival looking at programming, equitable programming, the balance of programming, how films from any community are properly programmed. Is the programming, the programming programmers, are they properly vetted and schooled and equipped? Is there a balance in programming? So I hope that is really explored with them going forward, because political films that come from sensitive regions of the world are going to keep coming. That's the world we live in. So I'm hoping the film festival looks at this and says, all right, how do we avoid what happened this year so we don't get into that situation? You can't avoid protests, and people have the freedom to protest and go ahead. Gesundter hate, as my grandfather used to say, protest if you want. Do it quietly and in a nonviolent way. So, to answer your question in a long way, my relationship with TIFF is fine. The world is watching, and I hope they govern themselves accordingly going forward.
And I'll just say, I want to speaking for myself here. I think, I truly appreciated what Cameron said on stage at Roy Thompson Hall at our premiere. It was a very classy move. It could not have been an easy thing to do. He did the right thing, and he apologized to the Jewish community. I thought that was wonderful. And when we won our People's Choice Award on the last day of the festival, I made a point, and Barry as well, of thanking the TIFF staff who were supportive of us, the people that made us, as filmmakers, especially once the film was reinstated, who made us feel like we belonged. I think the programming staff that, want to be boycotting films with films from Israel, even though ours is not an Israeli film, this is a Canadian film. It's just the subject matter is Israeli, but people who want to boycott films from Israel, or artists or athletes, I mean, that's not going to achieve world peace, number one. And number two is, generally it's the artists who are speaking truth to power. And I think it's important. Those are the voices you want to hear from. So anyone who tries to silence Jewish voices, Israeli voices, is really going down the wrong path.
I will also just add, Ellen, sorry, back to you, but I will also add that I don't have this enormous axe to grind with Cameron Bailey. Cameron invited the film. He called Mark and I and said, you are Canadian filmmakers. I'm proud of the film, and it's an important story to be told. That was the initial invitation. What ultimately led to him and the pressure that he was under internally, or whom whatever happened internally, what led him to withdraw the film was a mistake, and he acknowledged it, and the film was invited back.
Look, we mentioned politics. You mentioned it a while back. I looked at some of the reviews that have come out in the last few days, IMDb and others, San Francisco Chronicle. I'm sure you're getting them as well.
I only read reviews that are positive.
No. I mean, there was lots more, I'm sure, coming out in the next few days as people see it. But a lot of people, including on the stage the night that it was shown, said, okay, we don't want to talk about being political. You've said that it's a family story of love and courage, about how you have a film festival when everything is so political in the world at the moment. We're living in, so even if you say, I don't talk politics, of course, the context is politics. So I'm wondering how you've been able to keep that line about it's a family story when everyone's saying, well, yes, but.
But you can write whatever you want. I mean, a newspaper recently wrote that, so much is left unsaid about October 7th in the film. Go make your own movie then. The movie that Mark and I chose was about the Tibon family on that day. So you can call it whatever you want to call it, and find flaws and faults and what could have been explored, what should have been explored. Go and make your own movie, or find another documentary that explores that topic. In 96 minutes, or whatever the running time of this film is, we elected to tell a story about Noam Tibon. Anything else pulls focus from what he did on that day. Plenty of other films and media angles to cover it. I really think any film critic who writes what should have been put in the film, is not a filmmaker and missed the point of that story.
And I'll say, I said this to Barry before, but calling The Road Between Us an October 7th film is like calling Come From Away a 9/11 musical. That's not what the show is about. It's set on that day and then the days that follow. And our documentary is set on October 7th. But that's not at all what the film is about. And it minimizes the story and or it amplifies, I think, the wrong message to call it that, even though yes, there is some footage, not gratuitous, very selective, that illustrates exactly what happened on that day as Noam was making his way from Tel Aviv to his son's kibbutz. And I think, it's important that people see the film and not get pulled away by mischaracterizations.
We made the conscious decision as well to let, Gally, Noam's wife, have the last word in the film. And that is a political comment, a political statement about Israel, failing its own people on that day and things that have to change. We believe that. We believe that. And we specifically, had that in there as a voice to say, what does the road forward look like? But again, we focused on one piece of that film. And much like Mark makes the reference to 9/11, there are a lot of 9/11 scripted pieces and unscripted pieces and docs that dealt with pieces of that day, much like this is.
Well, just to finish off, did she not also say that the Israeli response in Gaza was revenge for being humiliated? That was a piece too.
She's her exact words that it's beginning to look like, something that's wrapped in vengeance. I don't live there, and it's for her to say.
Fair enough. You talked about these boycotts and the Hollywood A-listers that I'm sure you all know that they've signed these letters condemning they don't want to work with Israeli or Jewish producers or filmmakers. And then the other letter, right, that came out, Liev Schreiber, and saying, yes, it's terrible, you shouldn't boycott. Is this BDS boycott of Israeli, Jewish, and anything coming out of that area affecting what you can do going forward in your own production careers or your next productions, your next films? Are you feeling, besides the TIFF, are you feeling in other areas that you're working on, I guess is what I'm trying to get at, this notion, this campaign that you have to be isolated and excluded because of the Jewish and Israeli storytelling that you're doing?
I'll let Mark answer for himself. As far as I'm considered as a veteran documentarian, I will keep looking for the best and most interesting stories to tell. I'm not focused on the noise. I don't like it, but I'm not focused on the noise. I always believe that a great story, much like The Road Between Us, will find an audience, and I will work as hard as I can to find an audience. I am not going to get distracted by lists, boycotts, signatures. I'm focused on taking my camera and working with an incredible partner that I have right here and telling the right story.
I think it will affect us only in as much as if somebody looks at our next film and says, oh, these are the producers of The Road Between Us. I'm holding film festivals to a very high standard, a standard that I don't even think news organizations are held to these days, which is you have to remain completely agnostic. If you are a true film festival that purports to show stories and empower a dialogue through the power of cinema, you need to show stories from all over the world. You have to show stories from regions that are much more sensitive than others. And I think, when you look at you read a newspaper, you look at a news channel, you generally know what point of view is being fed to you these days. And I'm holding film festivals to a higher standard now. I think they need to be completely agnostic and completely remain as unbiased as possible.
Well, have a balance of programming it.
And a balance.
I want to go down into the actual film and some nitty-gritty quick questions because I've been curious. When you first sat down with the general and his wife and the family, they're not professional actors, right? Although they've been in the public eye. First of all, how much did you have to coach them through this process of being on film?
Well, I look, before I decided to do it, I spent a lot of time with Noam, specifically to find out whether or not he can tell a story. I've been down this road with many, many, many films where, and as is Mark, of people that he's laughing because he's thinking of one, of where, the heroines of the film are just not good film. They're not Hollywood. They're not good TV.
Do tell. I'm dying to know what it is. Okay.
But Noam, I did a lot of Zooms and a lot of calls with him in prep for this to get a sense of, how much work was it going to be. We knew that with he could take direction. He was in the military. We knew he knew his story, but was he a good storyteller? And certainly watching him on 60 Minutes and watching him on certain other interviews before we began, and again, some 30 Zoom calls before we arrived in Israel, I got a sense of that, I could direct him. We were very organized going down there, Ellen, in the days that we had, in a military way, organized from number of cameras to shoot days to the time that we had with him, because I knew he would appreciate that. If we kept him waiting, then we'd lose focus. And so I didn't have to prep him or coach him at all. He was completely comfortable with a large film crew, multiple cameras, and what I wanted to achieve. But at the end of every long day, he would say, okay, what's tomorrow? What are we doing? What do I need to know? What are you looking for the cameras? What's the message? He was very, very on it. Amir and Gally, I mean, made for this business in a lot of ways. I mean, she's an acclaimed author. She was a professor in residence, I think, at Penn State. She understands storytelling. Amir is a journalist. His wife is a social worker. They're people with empathy and emotion, and I didn't have to coach them at all. It wouldn't have worked. I had to coach myself, because sitting there and hearing their stories, I lost it time and time again, where I didn't want them to see me lose it, be emotional. There was one moment when we were filming Sharon, the woman whose husband is
Florentino.
Yes, right outside her house on the kibbutz, and she talks about that, and her little girl is floating around Mark and floating around me, looking at the cameras and the mics, and I looked at her and I looked at Sharon, who had talked about losing losing her husband and leaving her a widow of 3 kids. I had to leave the room. I couldn't, as a father of a daughter, I couldn't even compute it. So, it was me, and Sharon was tough. They're all tough. Israelis are tough, but I completely lost it. And I had not been emotional from that day until walking out on the stage of Roy Thompson Hall that night, that afternoon. So it was something, but they were all amazing to work with.
Mark, did you want to add something? And I'll just give you a thought. You talked about how they got it and they knew what to do. Did you have any agreement that there was things that they weren't going to be in the film that you wished could have been, like that was completely off limits? No,
nothing like that. I mean, you always overshoot. I mean, you wind up with hours and hours and hours of footage, and you want to cut it down to a manageable length. So, things do get left out, but things that were left out were really, it was to make the story as concise and as driven as possible, because the journey that Noam and Gally took from Tel Aviv to Nahal Oz, it should be a 2-hour drive, I think, and it took them 10 hours to get to their family. More, because of all the detours they had to take, turning back, roadblocks they encountered. So how do you have to, at the very least, condense that 10-hour journey into something manageable. So no, the things that got left off were not things that we asked them not to say, or things we didn't want them to say. It was just, how can we tell their story truthfully in an appropriate amount of time for people to sit in a theater.
So what are you going to do with all that stuff? Because I'm asking because I know I read, now this may not be true anymore, but the creators of Fauda are putting together a drama movie about the same story, and the T-Bonds are consultants.
There is a scripted feature that's been written. There's a director assigned to it. I don't think that's public, but they do plan to shoot a scripted feature. And the producer of that scripted feature flew to Toronto himself to see the reaction to this film, and was completely blown away, and said to me at dinner after, he said, I just, I was hoping it wouldn't be great, and I was hoping it would be great. And I understood that because we were. It's a fun story that we haven't talked about from a media at all. So a scoop in that when we approached Noam to make this film, they were in the process of negotiating the scripted feature, and did not want to talk about a documentary. And it was up to me and Mark to convince them that a documentary that is not a conflict and not competitive. It only, I think, keeps the brand going and alive. And so I had to really convince these producers of the scripted feature that will be made that, don't worry about us. And our condition in moving forward was that we would release the documentary before the scripted version, which was like, no problem. Mark and I work way back. Your scripted version will take, from the time we started this, will take 3 years. We'll be done in 8 months. We will have a premiere at Toronto, which we didn't take for granted, but we were hoping. Yeah, there was, in terms of what we do with all this footage, I'm hoping, we'll probably donate it to some kind of a museum or archive so that people can study Noam's interview at length, because there's 20 hours of it at minimum, and Galley and anybody else we interviewed for this film. So it should be seen.
So 2 quick things. And again, I'm going to ask, I don't know if I'll need it for the pod. Did you pay them to be in? Did they get paid or any royalties? How does that work for your participating in your documentary?
No, there was an option right to their story, very, very minimal to basically, and what that was, and nobody getting rich here on a documentary, that basically said it was an intent, a promise of intent, a letter of intent that we will make this, which moves us to the front of the line versus anyone else. So, it's almost reserving that moment or a promise to get it done. So no royalties beyond that, no profit participation. In fact, it's our intention, if we do make any money on this film, that money goes to the kibbutz.
That was my last question, which was, what are you going to do with Nachal Oz and how are you going to help? Please elaborate as our last question.
If you've been there, this is a community that's in need of life again. If you walk through there, and I mean, going through Israel and seeing what they've done in that country, architecturally, technologically, is so amazing to begin with. But you walk through Nachal, and there, when we were filming there, ghost town and upsetting. So whatever we can do to help rebuild it, we will do. The film is going to open in Israel on October 9th at the Haifa Film Festival.
Okay.
So we're very excited about, the reaction to the film then. I intend to be, yeah.
I will not be there. My wife is expecting a baby any day now, any week. Thank you. So I will be sticking around to make sure that if anything happens a little early, that she's not alone.
I couldn't live with myself if he's away, and then we have to name the baby The Road Between Us, because
it's a long name.
It is a long name. We can just call her Rhodey.
Sure.
Listen, thank you so much for being here with the CJN, and I know that that is a beautiful gesture, and to put the proceeds back into Israel, because then people's tickets will help the box office, will help that too. So,
correct.
And thank you for sharing this latest update. We'll hear from you again after the weekend box office.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.